with the presentation, I would like to confirm if you're able to hear my voice and view the presentation. Please do confirm by commenting on the chat window below. Thank you very much for the confirmation. And let me introduce myself. My name is Santosh, and I'm a product specialist with ManageEngine. I will be the trainer for you to take over the training session. We will be looking at software deployment, and let's quickly look at the training schedule. We are on the week 2, where we will be looking at the software deployment. We have completed patch management last week, and we do have several other tools coming up on the training schedule. If in case you have missed the previous training, you can always view them on the link shown on the bottom of the screen. And anytime during this presentation, if you have a query, you can always comment on the chat. We have an expert panel who will be answering all your queries real time. Let's look at the agenda that we have for today. We will be looking at the overview of Desktop Central, and we'll be looking at the architecture of Desktop Central. We will be deploying a freeware application or a specific application called Java version 8 to the network computers. And we'll be also looking at how I can deploy Microsoft Office 2016 to a specific department. And we'll also be looking at how we can make the users to install the softwares by themselves. We'll look at some scenarios and solutions that we came across in support, and we'll also look at some frequently asked questions. Desktop Central supports all 3 operating systems. We support Windows, Mac, and Linux flavors, as you can see on the screen. And we do have over 3,500 predefined application templates across Windows, Mac, and Linux, from which you can choose and install the application. You can remotely deploy those applications from the console. Now, we'll be talking about these application templates while I go into the product. Let's look at the architecture of Desktop Central. To begin with, the Desktop Central is a client-server model application, which means you will have to install agent on all the machines in order to manage them. And this is an on-premise solution. You can install the Desktop Central server in any one of the supported operating systems, and you will be able to push out the agents to all the machines. Now, with Desktop Central, you will be able to manage both local area network agent as well as wide net area network agents as well. In case of wide area network clients, you can create different branch offices, meaning you can manage different remote offices, and with a component called a distribution server. Now, what is a distribution server? Imagine you're managing over 100 machines in one of your remote locations or branch office. If you install distribution server in one of your machines in your branch office, whenever you deploy a patch or a software from your main server, it goes to the distribution server, and from the distribution server, it goes to all the clients locally there. Now, you can choose to manage the branch offices with the distribution server or with direct connections as well. Now, can I manage roaming users, meaning users who will be on the network as well as on the internet? Yes, we will be able to manage remote users as well. You can create a separate remote office just for your mobile users, wherein they can contact the Desktop Central server directly. We said it is an agent server model application, which means agent has to be installed on all the machines. How do we do it? We have 3 specific ways that we can push out the agent. One, if you have a domain setup, you can create a group policy and then push out the agent packages to all the machines. Now, Desktop Central can manage both workgroup as well as domain setup. In case you have a domain, you can create a group policy and a startup script, and you will be able to push out the agent. Or you can also use the desktop central console from which you can push out the agent. You will be able to push out the agent packages specific to a machines or specific to OUs from the desktop central. Or you can use scripts to deploy the agents as well. You can either download the application and install it manually on the machine, or you can use a script in order to install the agents. Once the agents are installed on all your client machines, it will automatically report back to the desktop central server. You can start managing them. You can manage laptops, desktops, servers, of course, POS devices with operating systems. You will be able to manage all these with Desktop Central. What if I have my remote offices in different locations who will be connecting over an internet, or my roaming users who will be connecting through the internet? What if I don't want to expose my central server? In that case, you can use a component called a forwarding server. Now, what is a forwarding server? A forwarding server is a secure gateway server which is placed in between your roaming users and the central server. Any communication between your roaming user and the central server will be routed through the forwarding server. What if all my agents or all my clients are roaming? In that case, you can host the Desktop Central server on Azure or on AWS instance as well. We are available at Azure and AWS Marketplace. So in case you want to host them on the cloud, you can definitely host the Desktop Central server in one of your instance. Now, hosting it on an Azure or AWS instance, it will be an advantage in case if you are an MSP. It's a cost-effective method where you don't have to invest on infrastructure or hardware. Now, please note, we will be migrating to cloud. You can soon expect Desktop Central also be a cloud version, where we have Patch Manager Plus, which is another ManageEngine product, which is already hosted on the cloud. We will soon have Desktop Central also going cloud. Now let's look at the components that are required or optional for managing Desktop Central. Server, which is an essential component, you will have to install it in any one of the supported operating system. Agent is also essential. You will have to install the agent application on all the machines in order to manage them. Notification server is also essential. We'll talk about this notification server while we deploy packages. The notification server will be a service that will be running along with your central server. Distribution server is optional. You can choose to manage with distribution server or without distribution server as well. Again, forwarding server is also optional in case if you don't want your central server to be exposed to the internet when you're managing roaming users, you can use forwarding server. We do have options for failover server. In case if you're looking for a failover server, it is also available as an option. Language pack is also available as optional. Now let's look at the ports that are used by the Desktop Central. Now Desktop Central for communication, inbound, it uses 8020, which is an HTTP port, and 8383, which will be a HTTPS port. And for the notification server, we use port number 8027, which will be TCP. And for the distribution server, towards the last, you can see it uses 8021 and 8384 for HTTPS. Now, there are other ports that are required by the Desktop Central as well. As you can see, if you are going to manage remote control using Desktop Central, you would need 8444 and 8443 for HTTPS, and for the file transfers as well. We do have voice and video chat available with Desktop Central. In case if you're interested to know more about voice call, video call, remote control, please do subscribe for the trainings, upcoming trainings. We will be discussing about the tools in the upcoming trainings. And there are other ports that Desktop Central uses in case if you would like to view a complete overview or technical details, you can go to the link that is shown on the bottom of the screen, and you will be able to get all the port details that are used by Desktop Central. The agent server model is used in Desktop Central. The agent contacts the server once in 90 minutes. We have a standard 90-minute refresh policy. Now, what is this 90-minute refresh policy? Imagine you have 90 machines, or 900, or even 9,000. This 90 minutes will be divided equally among them, and each client will have a separate time to contact the server. So each agent will be given a specific time in order for them to contact the server. It will avoid your network utilization issues or bandwidth related issues. So for a bigger environment, this 90 minutes is a key for a seamless communication. Now, why do enterprise require software deployments? In order to deploy softwares when you have a big network, you need a centralized solution where you will be able to deploy application from one solution to all the client machines. Thereby, you will be able to replicate the expertise of software installation without the necessity of an expert to install application in every machine. And you need a centralized software deployment solution to reduce the help desk request that comes in. If you can enable the user to install the applications from a specific portal, then you will have the reduced help desk request. So you need a centralized solution just like Desktop Central in order to deploy software. Let's look at how the software deployment works. With Desktop Central, you can download the application binaries and keep it on the repository. Now, once you download the application binaries and keep them on the repository, you can create packages on the Desktop Central server. Once you create the package, you can push them out to the agents. You can push them out to the local office. You can push them out to a remote office as well. In case of local office agent, they will take the application binaries directly from the repository. In case of a remote office or a branch office, the agents will contact the distribution server, wherein the distribution server will take the application binaries from the repository. Now, when I said repository, we have two types of repository. One is a network share. The other one is a HTTP type of repository. The difference is when you use a network share, the agent contacts the share and installs the application directly from the network share. In case of a HTTP type of repository, the agent downloads the application completely to its site and then proceeds with the installation. There are advantages with the network share and the HTTP type of repository. In case of a network share, it is suitable for LAN agents because the remote office agent may not have access to that specific share that you have for the server. On the other hand, HTTP repository, it is suitable for both your local office as well as your branch offices. When it comes to network share, there is no limit for the file size. You can keep a bigger packages like AutoCAD or any other application that takes more than 5 gigabytes. You can keep it on a network share and you will be able to deploy it from the share. But when it comes to HTTP type of repository, it is limited to 7 gigabytes per package. And when it comes to network share, you will have to set the network share with appropriate credentials for the access, and you'll have to maintain it because network shares are always vulnerable to attacks. Even on the recent attacks that we saw, network shares were used as a medium in order to propagate. So you will have to use appropriate credentials and you need to maintain the network share. But in a HTTP type of repository, you will not require them. And we do support DFS shares as well. In case you have a DFS share, you can map it to the Desktop Central and you'll be able to use it. To understand how the software deployment works for the networks, we will consider a specific scenario where Peter, being the IT manager, and he has John and his team, where they have specific tasks while they are managing a network of 1,000 computers. Now, John and his team has different remote locations that they can manage, and they also have local offices. So Peter, being the IT manager, have given John a specific task. Let's see how John is able to complete those tasks. The first task, which was given by the manager, is to deploy Java 8 to all the network computers. Now let's go to the product to understand how John will be able to deploy Java 8 application. Now this is the Desktop Central console view. It is a web server. You will be able to access it from any machine that has access to the server installed machine. Now John has to install Java 8 application. Now remember, we spoke about the templates. We have over 3,500 predefined application templates that the user can choose and install. So let's go to software deployment and click on templates. Let's go ahead and search for Java 8. See if the application is available as a part of the template. As you can see, there are different templates that are available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. When I click on the specific template, you can see the details of the application, the name, the version, the type of file it is, and the location or the place from where it will download the application. We also have configured the install switches that are required for the installation. So if you're going to use the template, you don't have to worry about the install switches. The install switches will already be configured there. In case of an EXE, you would definitely require the install switches, but if it's an MSI application, you will not require one. So when I go ahead and click on Create Package, it downloads the application from the vendor website, keeps it on my repository, and the package is created ready for deployment.
And in case if you have missed my presentation, from the templates, once you click on the package and click on Create Package, it will download the application binaries to the software repository. Now you can configure the repository over here. On the left-hand side, when you click on Software Repository, you will be able to configure where you want to store the application. This is the default location where the application will be stored in case of a network share, and this will be the default location where the application will be stored in terms of HTTP type of repository. Once the application is downloaded using the templates, we can click on Packages where the specific application will be available. We can search for Java 8 and it will be available from the list of packages. I can go ahead and select the package that I want and install it for a specific user or for a group of users, or I can install it for a specific computer or a group of computers as well. I'm going to choose as computers since Peter wants John to install Java on all the machines in the network. I can define the name of the configuration that I would like to install, in our case Java 8 deployment, and the package details. You can select it from the list. You can add multiple packages as well. In case if you are going to install 2 or 3 applications in a row, you can click on Add More Packages, which will add the additional packages. You can choose to install or uninstall the application as well. So the same package will be used to uninstall the application if you choose uninstall. In our case, we are going to choose install. By default, the installation will be tried as a system user. In case if you would like to run this as a specific user or a run as user using an administrator credentials, You can choose run as user and choose the credentials from the list. And you can even add new credentials as well. You have the scheduler settings. Now this is an optional settings. Consider you're deploying the application for an entire OU or an entire group in your Active Directory. Now if you add new missions to that group or the OU, those new missions will automatically pick this package and it will install. Whenever a new mission with the agent is added to that specific OU, it will automatically install this application. Now, if I want to set an expiry date and a start date, I will use this scheduler settings. Now, if I don't want the new missions that are added after a specific date to get this installed, I can specify an expiry date here. So if I set a specific date and say 31st of August, then whichever machines that are added to that specific OU after 31st will not get this application at all. So to set an expiry date or to set an install date, you will use the scheduler option. And choosing deployment settings. Now deployment policy is important because this is where you decide how and when you want to deploy the application. Let's create a deployment policy. In deployment policy, you will select which week of the month, which day of the week that you want to have the deployment to take place, and the time window between which you want the deployment to take place. You can specify a specific window for the deployment of the applications to take place. And this deployment policy is common for your patch management as well as for your software deployment. If you want the application to get installed at the system startup, you can choose this option. Or if you want the application to get installed during the 90 minutes refresh cycle, meaning whenever the agent contacts the server, if you would like to use that as an install time, you can choose refresh or either of these. Going for the other option, in case you have a Windows environment and if you have magic packets enabled on your network, you can use the wake and line feature to wake the machine up and then proceed with the deployment process. Now this is available for Windows environment, and if the network you should be able to do a broadcast of magic packets. You have an interesting option which says download patches or software during subsequent refresh cycle. Now imagine you have a time window from 5 p.m. till midnight. If you don't select this option, the patches or the software will be get downloaded to the agent machine only at 5 p.m. Now, if you want to have the package ready before the 5 p.m., you can check this box. So when you check this box, the application or the patches will be downloaded to the agent side before 5 p.m. Thereby, at 5 p.m., it will start installing the application. So if you have a stringent time frame in which you will have to install the application, you can go ahead and select this option. Otherwise, you can choose this option, uncheck this option. Moving down to the other option. By default, all installations from Desktop Central will be silent. In case if you would like to notify the user, you can use this option in order to notify the user, where the user can even skip the deployment process, and you can define a time period by which if the user is skipping it for 3 days, you can go ahead and force the deployment process to start. Or if you choose not to notify the user, you can simply uncheck the option. The other option that you define would be the reboot policy. You can decide whether you want to force reboot the machine after the deployment process, or if you want to give the option to the user and notify the user, they can click on postpone, and later on when they reboot the machine, the changes will be applied. Or if you want to force reboot the machine, if the user is delaying the deployment for a couple of days, or if they're delaying the reboot for a couple of days, you can have the option to force reboot the machine as well. If you decide not to reboot the machine at all, you can go with do not reboot option. So once you define the deployment policy, that specific deployment policy will be available from this list. You can choose the policy that you would like to deploy and use that for the deployment configuration. The target selection, you have a lot of customization available on the target. You can select an entire remote office, or you can specify a domain or a work group, or if you would like to filter it based on a specific group that is part of your Active Directory or a specific computer or a group, you can create groups on the server. You can create custom groups. We'll talk about these custom groups when we deploy the Office 2016. For now, you can choose those groups from here. For John, right now he'll have to deploy to all the machines, so he has selected all the remote offices. And you do have option to retry the configuration. What if the configuration fails? Would you like to retry it? If so, how many times would you like to retry it? Whether during the system startup or during the refresh cycle. You can choose those options here. And in case if you would like to be notified about the configuration, you can give your email address here. So if the deployment fails, or the status of the deployment will be emailed to you from Desktop Central server. You can even define the frequency of the email notification as well. You have two interesting options, deploy and deploy immediately. Now, when I click on deploy, the application will be deployed during the 90-minute cycle, meaning whenever the agent contacts the server will give the package and proceed with the installation. However, if you want to go for deploy immediately, immediate deployment, you can go for the deploy immediately option. Now, this is where the notification server 8027 we spoke about earlier will come into picture. This notification server will always maintain a live line between the agent and the central server. No data transfer, but just a long-lived TTL line. When I click on deploy immediately, it will ask the agent to come to the server and pick the package and proceed with the installation. So that's how John and his team will be able to deploy Java application to all the machines in their network. Again, in case you have any questions during the training, please do go ahead and comment on the chat. We have a panel who will be able to answer your questions. Let's look at the second task that is given to John and his team, deploying a commercial application like Microsoft Office 2016 to a specific department machines. Let's go to the product. So we do have templates for all the freeware applications. However, how about Microsoft Office 2016? Let's go ahead and see if we have any template available for 2016. I go to the templates, I click on search, I search for Office 2016. I do have a template, however, there is no download option, rather it shows me how to dock. When I click on that, it takes me to an article which talks about how I can deploy the Office 2016 or Office 365 to using Desktop Central. Now this article tells you how you can download the custom tool from the Microsoft website. This is a custom deployment tool available from Microsoft, and you can download and use it, or you can use your own package as well. And it also talks about how you can configure the configuration.xml file, which is required for the deployment process. And it also talks about the silent switch, how you need to give on the Desktop Central, and how you can proceed with the deployment process. Let's go to the product and see how we can use this article and deploy the Office 2016 application. Now your Office 2016 application will be available either as a complete set of CD like the one that you see on the screen, or you can download a custom tool, just the setup.exe and the configuration.xml file. You can use either of this in order to create a package and push it out to the agent. Let's go to software deployment, click on packages. Let's go ahead and create a new package. Here I can define whether it's going to be an MSI or an EXE type of installation. In our case, we are going to deploy Office 2016, which will be an EXE. So I choose EXE here, and the license type of the application. Since this is a commercial application, I'm going to choose commercial. And how are you going to deploy it? Are you going to use the share folder, or are you going to use the HTTP type of repository? This is where you decide how you want to deploy the application. In case if I want to use the share, I can go ahead, place my Office installation file on the share folder, and go ahead and specify the share details here. I can either browse through and select the application from the list. When I click on browse, as you can see, it browses my network share, the repository, from which I will be able to select the package, and it will be available here. Now the setup.exe, since this is an exe file, it requires the silent switch, which will be using the configuration.xml file in order to install silently. Now this is available on the link that is shown on the how to doc. You can go through this link in order to know how I can define the configuration.xml file. Let me show you a sample configuration.xml file. This is how the sample configuration.xml file will look like. You can use this file in order to deploy the application. So I go ahead and give the share details, and then I go ahead and say /configure. And again use the same repository where I have placed my configuration.xml. So now the setup.exe will use the configuration.xml file and completes the installation process. If you would like to understand whether it uses configure or config file, you can go to the respective deployment setup.exe and run a command as I show on the screen. You can go ahead and type setup.exe and put a /. It will be able to tell you what switch that you need to use and how you need to use it. So this will help you in configuring the setup. In case if you're using it from a CD, which has the complete set of files, you can use config instead of configure. You will see it will also give you the details of what you need to use in terms of the configuration file or the installation switches. So you can use accordingly whether to use config or use configure based on the installation file. Now this is not based on Desktop Central, this is based on the package. Now each setup will have different silent switches. Microsoft has different silent switches for customized tool as well as the whole package when it comes as a CD. So you can go ahead and type setup.exe and a / to understand what silent switch that you have to use and use the same on the Desktop Central. So once I give the silent switches, I can define pre-deployment activities and the post-deployment activities. For example, if you want to check the disk space, you can just simply click on the disk space and drag and drop, and you can specify the condition here. What is the minimum disk space that you require? Or if you would like to check for a specific software, you can go ahead and add that. If you want to check for a registry key, you can drag and drop that as well. The top portion that you see, condition, determines whether you want to proceed with the installation process or not. If the condition fails, it skips the installation. The second part is adding any configuration that is listed here. For example, if you would like to run a script before the installation, you can use that. Or if you want to kill a process before proceeding with the installation, you could do that as well. These are pre-deployment activities. Post deployment activities are also available in case if you would like to run a specific script after the installation process, you can do that. Or if you want to make registry changes after the installation, you will be able to do it. If you want to restart or start services, you will be able to do that as well. All you have to do is just drag and drop, click on the option, you will be able to define what process or what services that you want to change. We do have advanced ops settings as well while you are creating the package. On the advanced settings, you will let the server know what is the exe root path that it has to look back if in case if it needs one during the installation process. Exit code 0 will be the default for any successful installation. However, in certain cases, rare cases like installation of Adobe or few other applications where they change the exit code based on the vendor. So if in case you see a successful installation on the client side, but on the desktop central if it shows as failure, then you can see what is the correct exit code. You can get that from the vendor and update it here. But most of the time, exit code will be 0. In case if you want to change the architecture, if it's a 32-bit or 64-bit, you can change it here. By default, we give maximum time of 2 hours per installation. But if you think the installation takes longer time, best example would be technical applications like AutoCAD or Semantic, where it would run a live update post installation process. If it's going to take more than the specified time here, you can go ahead and increase them. And the package properties are for your reference. You can enter the details of the package here so that this will be on the record and it's for your benefit. In case if you're going to use uninstallation or if you're going to uninstall a specific application, you can configure uninstallation commands here so that the package will use it while uninstalling the application. Now this is when I use a share folder. How about if I'm going to use HTTP type of repository? Instead of specifying a complete installation arguments here, I can simply zip the entire folder and upload it here. On the client side, the agent will be able to unzip the package and proceed with installation. In our case, if I want to zip the entire package, like the one that I see here, I can zip the setup.exe and the configuration.xml file, zip it and add it to the package here. In this case, I will not be defining any specific place. I can simply say run the setup.exe and use the configure.xml in order to run the silent installation. You can simply give the command like this if you're going to zip the entire content and upload it. Remember, when you are creating a zip, choose the content and then zip it. Please do not put it in a specific folder like this and then proceed with the zipping process. In case if you're going to use the content that's part of the CD, you can select the entire content and make it to a zip folder, and then you will be able to upload it. Once you upload it and give the appropriate installation command here, when you click on add package, your package is ready. Once I create my package, I can go to software deployment, packages, and search for the package that I have created. In our case, this is Office 2016. The package will be available here. I can select the package and I can go for installing it on a user or for a computer. In John's case, he has to deploy this application to a group of machine. To be specific, the sales department. How do I create groups on Desktop Central? Let's go to admin and click on custom groups on the far left. This is where you create different groups that you can use within Desktop Central. When you click on create group, you can create groups, static, unique, and dynamic. The difference is when you create a static group, machines that are part of the static group can be part of other static groups as well. However, if you're going to use static unique, the machines that are part of one static unique cannot be a part of other static unique groups. Now, dynamic group is based on a specific criteria. For example, if you want to group them based on operating system, if you would like to group server operating systems alone separately, you will be able to do that. You can create a dynamic group wherein this group will only fetch the details of based on the criteria. In our case, we will be adding few machines to a sales to group them into a department called sales, and we will be choosing the custom group from the deployment process. Once I create the custom groups here, the groups will be available on the configuration that I created. The configuration page is similar to that of past deployment or the one that we saw previously. So you select the package here and you choose to install it. You select the deployment policy. And then when it comes to target selection, you choose the domain or the remote office that you would like, and then you are filtering it based on a specific custom groups. In John's case, he is going to select a specific sales team so that the application will be deployed only to the sales department. We can proceed to deploy or deploy immediately as well. Now, this is how John and his team will be able to deploy a specific commercial application like Office 2016 to a group of machines. Now, John is receiving a lot of requests to install different applications, different business softwares. Now, can he do something about it where the user can install by themselves and reduce the number of requests that is coming to John? For that, we do have an option called self-service portal. Now, what is a self-service portal? A self-service portal is a portal where the user will have a list of applications from which they can choose and install. The user will not require any admin privileges in order to do it because the agent is already installed on the client machine. It will use the system privileges in order to install the application. How did the user get this view? Let's go to the product. In software deployment, on the left-hand side, you can choose self-service portal, where again, I can create a group of computers or even a group of users. I can publish the packages to that specific group. If I have created a group of users, for example, sales team, and publish the packages to that specific group, now only that specific user will be able to see this list. I can simply drag and drop. And once I click on publish, that specific group of users will have these softwares listed on their self-service portal. How do I access this self-service portal? You can access it either from the agent tray icon. You can right click on the agent tray icon and click on self-service portal, or you can put it as a desktop shortcut wherein the user can simply double click on the shortcut and it will automatically open up the self-service portal view. Now, with the self-service portal, in case you have ManageEngine Service Desk Plus, which is another help desk ticketing tool from ManageEngine, in case you have both of them integrated, instead of simply clicking on install, you can have the option to click on request, and when the user requests an application, it comes to the help desk ticketing tool where the technician will be able to approve it. Once he approves, it installs the application on the end user side. Let me quickly show you how it looks like on the help desk ticketing tool. Like I mentioned, Service Desk Plus is another ManageEngine help desk ticketing tool. In case you are using it and if you have integrated it, if the user raised a request, it will come to the approver like this, and where he can choose to take action, he can choose to approve or reject it. If he chooses to approve and save it, automatically the application gets installed on the next 90 minutes. In case if he chooses to reject, the application will not be installed and it will show as rejected on the end user view. This is how it will be shown to the end user. As you can see, there are a lot of requests that's got installed, and there are a couple of requests that got rejected as well. With respect to the self-service portal in Desktop Central, if you have Service Desk Plus enabled, you can even define a service catalog as well. You can define who has to be the approver, who has to be the technician who receives the request. You can define a service catalog and mention it here, based on which the request will follow the process. And you can place it, as I mentioned, you can place it as a desktop shortcut or place it on the start menu as well. In case if you want to rebrand it, the Desktop Central branding, if you'd like to change it to your company logo on the service portal, you can change it here. You can display your own company logo here. And once you save changes, the users will be able to install the applications using this. Let's quickly look at the self-service portal, how it works, in case you have the Service Desk Plus integrated. The users can request the application from the self-service portal. It goes to the Desktop Central server, and from the Desktop Central server, it reaches the Service Desk Plus, and based on the approval or rejection, it comes back to the Desktop Central server and gets the application installed on the client computer. What are the common error messages that we used to get in terms of the software deployment? The first message that you might get will be system cannot find the file specified, or you might get access denied. This will directly reflect to the access that you have given to the share. Let's go to the product. On the software deployment, on the software repository, the client machine should have access to the share. If they don't have access to this share, or if the credentials that you have specified here is invalid, then the client machine will report back saying network path not found, or it will say access denied. In case if you're getting this message, then you will have to check for the share. The easiest way to check if the share and the credentials are proper is to go to the package that you have created. Now, in our case, we created a package for the Office 2016. You can copy the arguments and simply run the arguments on the end client computer. If it runs successfully and installs the application, it will install the application using Desktop Central as well. That's a simple check to understand if the application arguments are correct or not. The second message is related to the silent switches. As I mentioned, each executable or an exe will have separate silent switches based on the vendor. You will have to get in touch with the vendor to understand what is the correct silent switch for their application. You can also refer to the templates that we have to find out if we have a template associated for that application. So if you want to understand your silent switch is correct or not, again, you can follow the same method by posting the arguments here, and if it installs successfully, it will also install correctly through Desktop Central. Let's quickly look at some scenarios and solutions. Scenario 1. I want to install Autodesk design software on few computers and it requires .NET framework. How can I achieve this? Now this scenario talks about what if I have to install first a specific application and then proceed to the second one. Do I have option to it? Yes, we do have option in Desktop Central. When I'm going to deploy a specific application, for example, if I'm going to choose a specific exe, I can click on add more packages, wherein it will add multiple packages. It will install in the order that you select here. If I have chosen .NET Framework package as the first one, it will first install .NET Framework and then proceed with the other application. Or if in case you want to just check for .NET Framework without installing it, you can use the packages option here, which we have introduced. When you are creating a package for an application, at the pre-deployment, you can specify the condition. check for a specific application, and I can mention the application name and define the action. If the application is there, in our case .NET Framework, proceed with installation. If the .NET Framework is not, skip the installation and return back. Or if you want to uninstall a specific application, you can add that along with this condition as well. You can add uninstall application. So if it checks for a specific application and then proceed with uninstall as well. So you have two ways. Either you can use the pre-deployment to just check for the .NET, or you can add it on the configuration as multiple packages. Scenario 2. Can I install software at user level, such as Dropbox or Skype? Yes. When we were creating the application or deploying it, you have the option to deploy it either to user or for the computer. In case if you're going to use user profile to install it, you can use the user configuration. Some application will get installed as user configuration because it needs the user profile and user access in order to run. So you have to identify if the application needs a user configuration or a computer configuration. Either way, you will be able to deploy it through Desktop Central. Scenario 3. I have a third-party application that does not support silent installation. How can I install it? Well, this refers to an application where you do not have a silent switch, where you would want the end user to interact with the application. In that case, when you're creating a configuration for deployment, say for example, I'm creating a computer configuration. Here, I will have the option to check, allow the user to interact with the installation process. Now this will initiate an installation process, and it will bring the pop-up window where the user can click on next and next and complete the installation program. In case your application does not support the silent switches, you can opt for this. I have a set of applications including Office, CRM deployed for my sales team. I want all the new sales team to have this application installed on the computer automatically. How can I do this? Now, this was one of the scenarios that we were talking about. When we deploy it to a specific group or an OU, whenever a new machine is added to that OU or a group, it automatically takes this application or the configuration and proceeds with install. Where is the setting which configures that? You can click on configuration and you can click on configuration settings. As you can see here, you will be able to define whether you want to apply to all the new machines that are going to be added to that specific OU or a group. Whenever a new machine is added, it applies this configuration. And when do you want to apply it? Whether during a startup or during a user logon or during the 90 minutes refresh policy. I tried to deploy a business application, but it failed. Is there a way to troubleshoot it? Yes, we do have option to troubleshoot for the MSI applications, where when you are creating a package, click on software deployment, creating a package. I'm choosing Windows. You have the option to enable logging for troubleshooting. If you choose this option, a log file will be created on the agent side if there is a failure. Now, where the agent is installed, inside that you have a folder called logs. Inside logs, you will have a log created by the name of the package that you deployed. So in case there is a failure, you will be able to open this log and to understand why the application failed. Let's quickly look at some questions that frequently we get. How can I install an application for Mac machine which are not listed on the templates? For Mac and Windows, we have option to create packages. For example, you click on software deployment, click on add package. You have the option to create a package for Mac OS. You can define installation as well as uninstallation path, or if you have additional options where you need to execute a specific command, you can do that as well. This way, you will be able to deploy packages to Mac. Self-service portal is not enabled. Do I need an enterprise edition to use self-service portal? How do I know which edition do I use? Now, self-service portal is a part of enterprise edition as of now. In case if you would like to know what version or which version of Desktop Central you're running, you can click on the build version here to understand if it's the license details will tell you whether it's an enterprise edition or if it's a professional edition. If it's an enterprise edition, you will have the self-service portal configured already. Where can I view the software deployment tasks? So the tasks that are already executed, you can go to the software deployment and click on view configuration on the left. This will give you the list of configurations that you have already deployed. If you open a specific configuration, it will have the details of whether it got executed successfully or not. You can check the executed status to understand if there are any remarks. If there is a failure, you can see why it failed on this specific area. And you can also view the configuration details, whether when it got deployed and reboot policies, what was the package. Those details will be available. In case if you have given notification email, the same will be emailed to you as well. And in case if you would like to use this configuration for future, you can use this option called save as template or save as new. So if you save as template, this will be available as a user template, and whenever you want to deploy the same configuration, you can deploy it to different machines. The user template will be available on configuration, templates, and user defined templates. So whichever configuration that you save as a template will be available here so that you can use this for future deployment process. Where does you on the user's PC, does it copy the software installable? Does it erase afterward? Yes, it copies to the Desktop Central installed folder, and on successful installation, it deletes the application binaries. If I want my software package to be replicated to the remote office, what is the best way? Well, in case if you are going to deploy it to a remote office, then our recommended approach is to use the HTTP type of repository. You can upload it so that it will download to the agent side on the remote office and proceed with deployment. This will choose HTTP or HTTPS based on what communication that you have chosen, and it will download the application on the end user side. When multiple softwares are deployed in a sequence, if first package fails, does it attempt to continue? How does the notification send back? Well, if the first package fails, the configuration stops there and it will return back with error. So the same place where you saw the configurations, view configurations, you will be notified here. In case if you have configured the email address, like I mentioned, it will be emailed to you as well. And thank you very much for joining the entire training program. I believe the training program was helpful to you. Please do rate us on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is the best. We're looking forward for your feedbacks. And please do spread the word about the Desktop Central training. And we have a lot of trainings that's coming up in the future so that the people can join and get benefit out of it. The next training schedule will be on the asset management, which will be on August 8th. You can join them and to understand more features about the asset management. If you would like to have a personalized demo, we would love to do that for you. Please do request that on the link shown on the bottom of the screen. Our team will get in touch with you. We will be doing a free demonstration for you, either on your network or show us from the demo server. So you will get to understand more about the Desktop Central and the other features. And thank you very much once again for joining the training session. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. And we do have seminars that are coming up on Boston on August 14th, Philadelphia on August 16th, and Toronto on August 21. In case if you guys are around these places, please do join for our endpoint security seminar. Again, the places are Boston on August 14th, Philadelphia on August 16th, and Toronto on August 21st. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.